We ready? Yep. Okay, let's bring the meeting to order. We have a work session today to look at the Environmental Sustainability Commitment and Connected Cities Outcome Team to receive updates on the city's sustainability goals and discuss recommendations to the governing body to consider repealing Ordinance 9744 and adopting a new resolution highlighting climate action and adaptation plan with the overarching goal of climate neutrality by 2050.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Richardson, and I'm the Director of Sustainability for the City of Lawrence. I just wanted to do a checkpoint. Christina, do we have Zoom information to provide? Before I get started.
So the only one on Zoom.
Did you guys go through the
Hi.
Zoom?
Oh, you're.
All right.
Oh, I see.
Thank you for sharing the PowerPoint. So for tonight's joint meeting with the Connected City Advisory Board and Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board, we just have that one item, the work session, Nancy, that you mentioned. I will just clarify, this work session does not have an action item, so there's no action items for tonight. And we did create one agenda for this joint meeting, and we are also going to provide some minutes as a joint board, one set of minutes, not separate minutes for each board. So just some clarifications there on that. There is, on the agenda, there's no general public comment section, again, because there's just a work session. But if you want to allow for some public comment related to this work session item, that's something that is common to do kind of towards the end of your conversations and questions for staff and such. So I just wanted to mention that with public comment for this particular agenda item. So the second slide on here has information about staff, both city and county.
Christina, can you share that to Zoom, please?
It is being shared.
We can see on Zoom, we can just see the agenda right now, Christina.
Correct. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
All right, we included a slide here just for introductions, so you know who we are in the room, and maybe online there might be somebody. And the reason I want to introduce the staff is just because they are here to be able to answer your questions. So they have expertise in a lot of different areas, and we wanted to make sure to have everybody here tonight for you. So Melissa Sieben, I believe, was going to join us online. She's the Director of Municipal Services and Operations Department, and she is the champion of the outcome, the Connected City outcome within our strategic plan. I've got Melinda Harger, the Assistant Director of MSO short for Municipal Services and Operations Department. And she's with Construction Management, Engineering, and Development. I think that Melinda and Trevor are like competing to see who has the longest job title. So Trevor Flynn is the one just right next to Melinda, and he's Assistant Director of MSO, and his area is Environment, Health, Science, and Treatment Operations. So we also invited some county staff, and they really wanted to be here to be able to help answer any questions on the climate action and adaptation plan. So super thankful for Kim Kreiner-Ritchie, who's here. She's the sustainability manager for Douglas County. And shortly, Jamie Hofflin will be here as well in person. And she's the sustainability impact analyst, and also really the person who did a lot of the hard work to bring this plan together. So I wanted to mention her as well. I I know we want to jump right into presentation and discussion, but for me, it's a little bit odd to be in a meeting, especially when we bring two boards together, if you don't know who you're sitting next to. So if you can at least share just your name and whether you're with Connected City or with Environmental Sustainability. And if you want to share something about yourself, do so just briefly, and we can start here in the room and then go online, if that's okay.
I'll go ahead and start over here. I'm Mike Wazakowski. I'm on the Connected City Advisory Board, and if you look at the ADAPT plan, you'll see my name under the steering committee members.
I'm Jenny Tricano-Muller. I'm on Connected City and the Bike Plan Steering Committee. And in my day job, I work in environmental conservation.
Hi, I'm Mohsen Fatemi. I'm on the Sustainability Advisory Board, Environmental Sustainability.
I'm Nancy Mim. I'm Chair of the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board.
I'm Josh Roundy. I'm also on the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board.
I'm Ryan Reza. I'm on the Connected City Advisory Board.
And I'm Nick Kuzmiak, also on the Connected City Advisory Board. Been on this board in its various incarnations for like 6 years now, so it's very cool to see where it's going now. Online now.
I'm Hillary Carter. I'm the chair of the Connected City Advisory Board. I'm sorry I'm not there with you all tonight. I'm trying to outrun this storm headed towards Kansas and trying to get home as fast as possible. So I'm glad to join you virtually.
And hi, I'm Chloe with Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board.
All right, is that everybody online? Yeah, okay, awesome. Okay, thank you for introducing yourselves. So the next slide has just a little bit of information of the purpose of both of these boards. Just you know what your purpose is of your specific board, but just for the general public to understand that both of these boards were established for the purpose of considering, developing, and providing policy advice to the governing body. And one of you, the Connected City Advisory Board, is in regards to the Connected City outcome, and then obviously Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board is that policy advice on the environmental sustainability commitment of the strategic plan. Okay, next slide. So we always get extra credit when we talk about the strategic plan, and especially if you put slides on strategic plan in your presentation. So I've got to, work on that and always choose to talk about strategic plan at the beginning of my presentations. So the strategic plan framework that the City Commission adopted in 2020 has 5 components to it: mission, vision, organizational values, and then outcomes and commitments, which we've been talking about. I'm not going to read these out loud, but they're on here just as a reminder of what our mission, vision, and organizational values are. Again, this strategic plan framework came together with a lot of public participation. Over 3,000 Lawrence residents gave input to put together this strategic plan. Next slide. Here's a list of our outcomes and commitments. And unfortunately, I always forget to write the citywide one under outcomes, but there is an outcome called citywide because it didn't fall into one of these buckets and has a bigger impact or a little bit more expansive. So Connected City is one of the outcomes, as well as safe and secure, unmistakable identity, prosperity and economic security, and strong welcoming neighborhoods. And then to the right of that list are all our commitments. The easy way to explain it, I usually tell people, the outcomes are the work that the city is in the business to do, and then the commitments is how we do that work, right? Well, actually, one of the, did want to mention, one of the, what I find great about the strategic plan is that there is not one director or one department that is responsible for a key performance indicator. They are shared, so they are shared between one outcome and one commitment. I will say that some of these KPIs, there's more than one commitment that could participate in that discussion and is also doing the work. But primarily, there's always going to be one of each. So we do share the work, and we're both accountable for that work. So I think that's awesome. And here's an example of two of these boards, one who's an outcome board, and then the other one is a commitment board coming together to, again, share the work and have this discussion together. So I, again, appreciate you coming together for this important discussion. The next slide really is just a quick agenda of the presentation. So we're going to talk about some background information, like why are we here and why are we talking about this? Update on city sustainability goals. And I will tell you, I can talk for 2 to 3 hours about everything we've been doing, all the great work that the city has been pushing forward in terms of environmental sustainability, but that is not the goal for tonight. So I'm going to be extremely brief. I did provide links to a lot of important documents that the Commission has adopted, like the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, but this is not a presentation about the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. So I just wanted to clear that up, that I'll try to be brief so that you all have time to have this discussion with us. The fourth item is discussing the recommended changes that staff has put together, and then, we always end with, what's the next step, so that you all know what the expectation is following the end of this meeting. Next slide. And if I do get very wordy, just tell me, cut it. Keep going, Kathy. All right, background, why are we here? So, the clearest indication of why we're here is because the City Commission did ask staff to work on some revisions to Ordinance 9744 and to work with the two new boards, the Connected City Advisory Board and the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board. So here we are. That same night that we had given a presentation to the City Commission on Ordinance 9744 and other environmental sustainability commitment items, that same night the City Commission also took action to adopt the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, which is a county-wide plan with the goal of climate neutrality by 2050. That one was in a consent agenda item. The second bullet there, that was a work session and good discussion that we had with Commission. I had provided some information on how to get to that past presentation. Some of you may have already reviewed it, some maybe not, but that just has the discussion points as to why we were requesting some changes and maybe a change in direction with that ordinance. I did want to also just highlight some earlier City Commission actions that I think are important. In October 2020, that's when they adopted the strategic plan framework that I started talking about. And before that strategic plan framework was adopted is when the City Commission adopted Ordinance 9744, which is the city's renewable energy goals, right? So 100% clean renewable energy. The farthest date is that 2035 that's on here, but we had some goals for 2025, so last year, 2030 and 2035, as outlined in that ordinance. And hopefully you all had an opportunity to go back and read that ordinance. And then even further back in time, I just wanted to mention that back in 2009, the City Commission did receive a climate protection plan from the mayor-appointed Climate Action Task Force that they created. And this is the document that outlined greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals for the city of Lawrence. So older document, but just for reference, that we've been doing a lot of this work for quite some time. It's not just from 2024 on. Okay, next slide. So this is the portion of the presentation to give an update on sustainability goals. So our sustainability goals and the work that we have prioritized is what is showing up in our strategic plan, right? So everything is rooted to our strategic plan. And we do have 3 priority KPIs that we've been working on. The 3 priority KPIs were established or prioritized last year with the hope that the next couple years is the time frame of us working on moving the needle on these 3. So 1 is pounds per person per day of municipal solid waste trash disposed. So what we're measuring there, what we want to measure is a reduction of the amount of trash that people generate per day. So waste reduction efforts, recycling, composting, et cetera. That one is shared with Strong Welcoming Neighborhoods outcome, but we do work closely with MSO staff because the solid waste division is part of that department. The second priority KPI is per capita of greenhouse gas emissions and tons of carbon dioxide equivalents. Essentially, we're measuring a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. That's the goal, and it's not about just city operations, it's community-wide. That one is also shared with Strong Welcoming Neighborhoods outcome. And the third is the percent of city-used electricity powered by on-site renewable energy. And that one is shared with Connected City outcome. And it's a little bit of a different take of a KPI that we had prior to that. This one is really highlighting on-site renewable energy. So not how much the city have in electricity use that it has purchased, wind renewable credits for. No, this is measuring just what we have on-site, what we're producing. We are covered at 100% of our electricity use with our wind renewable credits. So this is a different measure, and it really kind of flipped the equation because it's a very small percentage at this time. We're going to improve, though. So yeah, the hope is, again, that more and more of our city-used electricity is powered by on-site renewable energy. I do have updates on some of these, and again, I'll just try to go through them super quick. On the solid waste priority KPI, we are working with Burns & McDonnell on a solid waste master plan. That is very exciting. And this year is when the recommendations in the full report will be completed. At the same time, Burns & McDonnell is also working on a solid waste management plan. And this is for Douglas County and Jefferson County. So we have a regional 2-county solid waste management plan that are documents required to be submitted to the state of Kansas. So we've been able to utilize the same consultant to do the work of both. And I just want to highlight these 2 things, show up in the climate action and adaptation plan. Actually, there's links to all of these priority KPIs and some of the other KPIs that are not prioritized right now, but there's links to where those fall in within the strategies and goals of the climate action and adaptation plan. So I wanted to mention that. There's a lot of other work currently being done, but the planning work is going to really help the city know what's our next move. Is it food waste, composting, collection and composting? Is it providing more recycling services to the commercial sector, et cetera? These are all the items that we're reviewing with our solid waste group and MSO group, as well as the consultant. There's a survey that has been released or will be released this month, correct? Yeah. As well as the county has released a survey for county residents to give their feedback on the current level of services for solid waste. On the greenhouse gas emissions, just super briefly, one of the major items on here was to consider, review, and adopt the new building and energy codes. So we were at 2018, we skipped 2021, and we're going straight to 2024. We, meaning our, that's like, you know, not sustainability leading this pack, but the planning and development services rockstar staff. But we are all able to join in that conversation. So I just wanted you to all know that the update on that is they are moving forward this spring with going line by line through the energy code with the building code of boards of appeals. I always have to look that one down. So that is the process, and the reason why they're going to go line by line down it is because if there's something that is not pertinent to the city of Lawrence, we're not a coastal town, and there's a section about that, they're able to work on a local amendment, that's what it's called, which is a local amendment of changes of that energy code. So that process is getting started in the spring. And the hope is that this will be completed and to City Commission this year with an effective date of, if not later on this year, you know, maybe first of the year in 2027. So pretty exciting for those, for that section. I did also want to mention really quickly that we have we're in the process of receiving $200,000 from the state of Kansas, which is a pass-through federal grant for the climate pollution reduction grant. And this $200,000, which the city commission did authorize the city manager to sign off on this last Tuesday, this past meeting. This is for use of planning work, not implementation, but climate planning work. So the state of Kansas is well aware that the city of Lawrence with Douglas County, that we have already established our climate action and adaptation plan that's been approved. But there is additional planning work to do with that. So we're excited to be able to have funding in this area. One of the things we are going to be using it for is partnering with ICLEI, the local governments for sustainability, who is really the expert in that advice on greenhouse gas inventories and projections. So if the city of Lawrence were to do XYZ, this is what it could see in a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So that's super important. So some of the funding will go to that. Some of the funding will also help that third KPI, which is the development of an energy plan for city facilities. So we do not have an energy plan at this time. And we also would like to do some studies on feasibility of electrifying our facilities and information on, feasibility and study on analysis on additional renewable energy on site for these facilities. Okay, that was like a lot of information, but these are really important KPIs. I think that the most important thing to get from these updates on sustainability is that we're working on a wide, a lot of different aspects of sustainability. We're not working just on renewable energy, although that is a very important item for our city facilities, and then also for our goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions community-wide. I have on here, but I'm not going to talk about it because I'm already talking too much. Other strategic plan KPI highlights. We did. We worked through a sustainable capital projects policy that was adopted by the city commission, which is super cool. So any new city facility, LEED Gold, yay. And infrastructure projects are going through Envision verification. We have a few projects that are currently underway with these guys, that will comply with this policy. So more information to come in the next few years. Fleet transition plan was also worked on and presented to the City Commission. ADAPT Douglas County Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. Again, I would love to go through the details of that plan. I did provide that link prior to this meeting for all of you to review. Some of you did participate in the steering committee. I'm so glad that Mike mentioned that. Nancy was also on the steering committee for the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. I put on here on the slide just the definition of climate neutrality. Again, just to clear up any questions on what that might mean. And it's the targeted reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and greenhouse gas avoidance in government operations and across the community in all sectors to an absolute net zero emission level. All right, next slide.
Kathy, oh, sorry, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Hey, if you can go back to the last slide, I didn't hear anything on the greenhouse gas emissions about modal shifts, transportation emissions. I know, like, buildings, typically what I've seen comprise about half of greenhouse gas emissions and transportation being the other half, and I haven't dug into the IBC update, but I'm wondering if you could speak to anything about greenhouse gas emission goals and transportation in the community, because that's directly connected to the connected city work that we do.
Sure, and I appreciate you highlighting that question. So when we talk overall about reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, we're not just talking about facilities and buildings. We're talking about any and all contributions to greenhouse emissions and how we're going to reduce those. So transportation is a big section in that, and certainly part of the work that we are doing. I think that the first step is really going to be for us to have an updated greenhouse gas inventory completed. So it's been a few years now. We did provide information for the greenhouse gas emissions inventory that the county completed for the year 2021. But we want to have an updated one, and then it's going to touch on or tell us that information as to how much emissions is coming from transportation, how much is coming from buildings and facilities, and then what are actions that we can do in each one of those sectors. If anybody had an opportunity to just glance, I know nobody probably read in detail, but just glance at that climate protection plan. It did have that initial greenhouse gas inventory that the city had completed with the baseline of 2025, but it goes into, that plan actually was very thorough in going through each section and then providing, what can the city do to put into motion for hopefully the reduction of those greenhouse gas emissions. I will also mention the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan has a big section on mobility. That's why Mike was on the steering committee.
Yeah, there's a lot of goals that are related to mobility in the plan.
Yes, absolutely. But thank you for highlighting that.
I had a question in particular relating to that second KPI about emissions relating to carbon dioxide equivalents. Is there a reason we focused on that as opposed to a more broad spectrum of greenhouse gases that could include things like methane or nitrous oxide and sulfur dioxide that also produce similar outcomes?
This was a kind of a measure where we could have community comparison, and I think that that's where we landed on, just because we could compare ourselves across the board. Now, one of the things about this priority KPI that I will mention is that we very desperately need new data, and that conversation about greenhouse gas emissions and what, what is most important, or what the city really needs to be focusing on. It's a lot of work, right? So with the help of ICLEI, we hope to get there. And one of the things that they were hoping to do too is to help us with rewording our KPI. Again, they're experts in this. They've been working with tons of communities, not only nationwide, but worldwide. And so we're really wanting to lean to their expertise to help us with this. We haven't stepped through that process yet because we did not have a budget for it until just this week when the City Commission approved the city manager to authorize that agreement. So the way the money works from the KDHE pass-through grant, which is from the IRA and through the EPA, and there were discussions last year to make sure that this is not funding that was going to be clawed back, that this is funding that the state of Kansas is able to provide to us in a reimbursement format. So they already know our plans to get together with ICLEI on this work. And yeah, I want to mention that none of this is very set in stone because we do need a level of expertise that is not within our staff. So to be fair.
And if I understood the question correctly, this equivalent means like it's an all-inclusive language. It's kind of a standardized way. So I guess it could like include all the other greenhouse gases as standardized into this measure.
It seems to be a standard measure that creates that community-to-community comparison.
Thank you.
But a lot of more work to do in that area for sure. Any other clarification questions really quick? Okay, and definitely jot down some questions if you want to ask at the end. So the next slide is to discuss the recommended changes. So these are changes not for this board, these two boards to consider, but these are the recommended changes that the staff wants to go in front of City Commission for their guidance. But we are working with these two boards to hopefully, agree upon or get your feedback also in preparation for this meeting with the City Commission. So we will recommend to the City Commission to repeal Ordinance 9744. For all the reasons we had discussed in the prior work session with the City Commission, but highlighting just the bigger items is the unrealistic goals of obtaining that 100% clean renewable energy by that timeline. The timeline was not realistic. Also, just to mention, and this has been something that our city attorney's office has helped guidance with, is that goals really fall under resolutions and not ordinances. So this should have been a resolution to start off with, but for whatever reasons, it was an ordinance that was adopted. So when we look at, replacing, what the sustainability goals are going to be for the city, we're really looking at resolution, not an ordinance, if that makes sense to y'all. So consider adopting a new resolution outlining the goal of climate neutrality by 2050 for Lawrence. So we're going to recommend that to the City Commission. And if somebody was going to ask us, where is that resolution? We do not have the resolution drafted. So this is a item of process, and I know I've gone through this a lot with the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board, maybe MSO staff with Connected City, where we go to a City Commission meeting as a work session to say, hey, this is what we're thinking about, this is where we think we're going. What's your feedback on that? If they don't want a new resolution, then we didn't want to have our city attorney staff tied up drafting a resolution if that's not their direction. And there's going to be multiple other steps, so we're not just at work session and that's it. We'll go to work session to ask the commission how they feel about our recommendations, and then they'll give us their feedback, and we'll work with that to then come back to another city commission meeting. Sometimes that happens through a regular agenda item. Sometimes it's as simple as a consent agenda item that gets added to a future commission meeting. So, but we don't write resolutions or do a lot of legal work prior to knowing if this commission would like to go this direction. This is also a newer or a different commission than the commission that had a lot of these conversations in the past about, you know, the commission that adopted the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, and then the commission that received that prior work session. So, you know, we're going in with, this is what we're thinking, please give us some direction. If they say, we give you direction to go ahead and write this new resolution, we'll engage our city attorney staff to write it. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. The new resolution would be outlining the kind of overarching goal of climate neutrality by 2050 for Lawrence. That just kind of a little bit broader than the 100% clean renewable energy goal will better match our sustainability priorities as they show up in our strategic plan and as they'll continue to show up in our strategic plan. It also aligns with our Adapt Douglas County, a climate action and adaptation plan, which has that overarching goal. It also aligns with the Kansas City Regional Climate Action Plan. Why does that matter? Lawrence and Douglas County actually participated in this regional plan. And again, they went with carbon neutral or carbon zero by 2050. So that's their timeline as well. As you all know, this work isn't work where it can be carved out in one city. It's a regional approach. So I just wanted to mention that and why we're picking climate neutrality by 2050 for the new resolution. And then next slide, just really quick. Next steps is for staff to schedule a city commission work session. We will provide a presentation. It would likely be like an environmental sustainability commitment presentation with connected city outcome. And we will go over the recommended changes for them to consider and then seek their direction. Once we get that direction and that through that work session, we will, at future board meetings of both of your boards, we will come back to provide an update. So at this time, we're not thinking there's going to be another joint meeting, but that's a possibility, right? But we will come back to both boards with an update on where we're headed based on that guidance that in direction that our city commission has given us. So I'm going to pause there. I've been talking for a while, so if I've missed anything, staff is here to fill in, but really wanting to open this up for discussion with the two boards on our recommendations that we're hoping to go over with the city commission and next steps.
So is the proposal going to be just the broad outline and the overarching goal of carbon neutrality by 2050, or is it going to contain some sub-goals or some milestones that you want to reach as well?
Good question. So the resolution for the goal of climate neutrality by 2050 is going to, again, link to the document that we worked closely together with Douglas County, which is Adapt Douglas County, a climate action and adaptation plan. Within that plan, it has a lot of detail that doesn't go into a resolution, right?
Sure.
So there's the details of all the strategies and goals that, you know, countywide, but also City of Lawrence is working on. It provides information about, reporting. We wouldn't write information about how we're going to report via a resolution. One of the things, I know I was talking to Kim the other day, and she mentioned that this document, the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, is set so it's not set in stone. Every few years, we're reviewing and potentially changing some of the strategies and some of the goals, and we're going to be doing new inventories, often, and so it's not, the level of details that are going to change, because we know lots of things are changing into our future, don't belong in a resolution.
Okay.
The resolution is hopefully going to, be not have updates, every 5 years or so, but it's going to link to the way and the format and the structure of what we're working on is through that Climate Action and Adaptation Plan in conjunction with our strategic plan work.
Okay.
Which the city adopted in 2024.
Yes. Yes. That's important to know. The City Commission adopted Adapt Douglas County, a Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, a few months after the County Commission did. At the time that they adopted it, they did not adopt the plan through a resolution. The county adopted by resolution. I'm not sure why it didn't work out that way. But this would be a formal resolution adoption of the plan.
So how did they adopt it then?
It was on consent agenda just as adopt the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan
Okay.
with no resolution, yeah. But this will formalize that adoption and also, highlight the overarching goal, if that makes sense.
If I can piggyback on that question, the ordinance that's in question that you're recommending be repealed does have milestone markers, right, for 2025, 2035, 2030, so on and so forth. If it's a resolution that's just to adopt this plan, how will milestones be met? If it's more like it sounds like it's more goal-oriented rather than, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. It's like this is just our framework. And again, I haven't read the whole plan in detail, so I don't know. But are there milestones that you want to achieve other than just 2050, which is a quarter of a century from now, right? So how do we get there?
That's a great question. And there are the milestones within the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. So I know there's So
you have times in there as well?
There, in the section of and I can see if I can pull it up really quickly. And I know
the activity
Kim and Jamie are
strategy
here, but
plan.
it does talk about kind of where we think we may be. There's a lot of variables, but then how to, midway, is it midway? And then getting to the.
Yeah, there's a chart.
Yeah. But the milestones are on here. We just know that those may change, and again, we're not planning to add that level of detail into a resolution.
Page
24, thank you.
Yeah, and Hillary, I think some of what we talked about taking out of ordinance was, these aren't enforceable since our goals in ordinance. Typically, ordinances are in place to enforce or have a mechanism to implement something, without a choice, not a goal, so to speak. Since they are goals, I think that's what we're getting at. The resolution is more appropriate from the get-go. So it really won't change. Milestones certainly can still be implemented because these are just not enforceable.
There's no one accountable.
Goals anyways, the way they're reading the ordinance.
So in practice, we could theoretically lift the word ordinance out of 9744, replace it with resolution. It would mostly be what you were aiming for, other than the content needs to change a little bit. Is that part of it then?
the content does need to change, and
Absolutely.
and I mean, it's significant enough where it's a repeal versus a, let's edit this ordinance, because it does need to be a resolution. And I will also just clarify this, because I know that there's a strong support for Ordinance 9744, and that the city needs to continue to work as a priority in making sure that we are operating and the community into increasing that clean renewable energy. But that is one of the strategies and goals within the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. We're not going to get to climate neutrality by 2050. We don't work on the clean renewable energy. So that is still going to be a component. But this is a little bit more, a bigger, I guess, Mike, just stepping to a more overarching goal and tying it to a mechanism. So I don't think I mentioned this earlier. When the commission adopted back in 2020, the Ordinance 9744, there was no roadmap on how we were going to get there. For the resolution I'm talking about right now, the roadmap is the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, which we already know was favorable and adopted by the commission. So we kind of stepped into that with a big goal, but not how we were going to get there. And now we're stuck in this, kind of uncertainty. I think that ordinance also specifies that potentially through the work of the climate action plan, that could be the roadmap. But as you all know, climate action is much bigger than just energy. So there's transportation, there's solid waste, the natural environment. It's just much bigger than energy sector.
In the presentation, you all framed the ordinance on 7744 was unrealistic in the goals and timeline set. Can you walk us through what was unrealistic about the ordinance? Because I'm not following that right now, so I just want to get.
Sure, absolutely. And some of this was mentioned in that presentation to commission. So for instance, the first goal was for all city operations to be covered sourced at 100% clean renewable energy for all our operations. So, and that's by 2025. So last year, we are covered at 100% through a partnership with Evergy, where we purchased wind renewable credits. Lots of folks will say, no, City of Lawrence, that doesn't mean you were powered by clean renewable energy. You're still powered by the coal-fired power plant, and you purchased these credits from wind energy. Other folks felt like we checked off that goal, that that should count. So there was a little bit of disagreement there. But when we talk about how much clean renewable energy is powering our facilities right now, it's like 3%. So if we want to have that conversation of what's not, being powered by the coal-fired power plant. So we're at 3% versus we've been reporting to this community that, we're powered by 100% clean renewable energy for the last, so our agreement was signed in 2020 also, the same year that the ordinance was adopted. And that agreement with Evergy, I know Mohsen had asked, is a 20-year agreement to purchase the wind renewable energy. Okay, so that was one example of whether some people feel like we met it, other people say absolutely not, because the ordinance is very clear about its definition of what clean renewable energy is, and thus the coal-fired power plant would not be okay. The other thing is just community-wide. There are some goals there set, and that is really truly saying that every residential and commercial business would be powered 100% by clean renewable energy. I don't know anybody that in this field that would say that is any way doable. and especially with a lot of the restrictions that we have. If we wanted to, so there's not really a lot of options for clean renewable energy on the natural gas side of things. Yet we're tied here in the state of Kansas for not being able to put in any sort of requirement like you hear from other cities, maybe at the coast of you must only build at 100% electric, buildings. We can't do that here in the state of Kansas. So we won't be able to control that piece. For people to have on-site clean renewable energy, there's definitely an investment on their part. The city hasn't had funds to just hand out to folks. Certainly, we've been trying to have information front and center for those who are interested and that can afford it. We're also, a large part of all of this and whether it's going to work out is what our utilities are going to do and how they're going to source their power. So we continue to have our, partnership and building good relationships with our utilities, both Evergy and Black Hills. But again, it's not realistic that community-wide, that City of Lawrence will be powered at 100% clean renewable energy by the year 2035. I should also mention, that's on the building side. On the vehicle side, the ordinance also covers that piece, the transportation piece. So that would mean that all the vehicles in the City of Lawrence would be, like, for example, all electric vehicles, only electric vehicles in the City of Lawrence, and then they were being powered by renewable energy, right? They plug in and get their renewable energy. So we don't even know how we could do that with our fleet vehicle by 2035. We did have a consultant who worked with us on this fleet transition plan. And at this time, there really is very little opportunity for electric vehicles when you talk about heavy-duty vehicles, which the city owns a lot because we do our own collection of trash, recycling, and yard waste, as well as streets, and our utilities have a pretty big specialized vehicle, compost facility. I mean, you name it, we have a lot of big equipment that currently doesn't have that option. Now, it could be that in 10 years, 5 years, maybe that changes really quick, and those options are available and that we can afford them. But the budget does not line up at all as something that is doable. And I think about it too, when the ordinance was passed in 2020, if I was told that in 5 years I needed to figure out the city budget so that 100% of our facilities would be running on-site clean renewable energy, how you do that in 5 years is not possible. We like challenges, it's just this is past a challenge.
So how did this happen in the first place? It sounds like we passed an ordinance that was doomed to fail. Was it driven by city commission at the time, city manager? Who drove this if the information already was known that it was unrealistic?
So the board that was working on this was the Sustainability Advisory Board, and they were working, in conjunction with sustainability staff. I will say, and just to give credit to back in the day, we learned so much every day and things keep changing, is that there was a high trend, it was trendy, I guess I'll put it that way, to make these kind of statements, right? That our city or our county is gonna be 100% clean renewable energy by the year blah, blah, blah. It's what was being talked about, and I think it kind of, Lawrence got that bug and wanted to be one of those cities too. Nothing wrong with a goal of having, and working towards more and more clean renewable energy. By no means is that negative at all. That is something we should continue to strive for, right? And that's why we've made it one of our priority KPIs within our city facilities, something we can control. We're looking at how we're going to add solar, and this is why we put forth the Sustainable Capital Projects policy. So the MSO campus that's going to come online is going to have solar. The new fire station we're talking about, solar, et cetera. So.
Okay, so I guess in that case, that brings up another, it's really interesting to kind of hear about it that way, that it was kind of trendy. I guess as somebody who has to make goals fairly often, for myself and projects and stuff, I don't know if you've heard the acronym SMART, like a SMART goal.
Yeah.
And each letter stands for something, so it's got to be, I'm going to probably mess all these up.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely.
It sounds like everything but the A was possible in this place, where it's like, if the information was available that it was not going to be achievable, I don't know. I mean, obviously it's Monday morning quarterbacking at this point, but I guess the learnable lesson here is, are we sure everything is achievable in this new one? Like, is everything in the new climate action plan actually achievable? Or is information going to come out in a year, we're going to find out, oh, that's totally impossible? Because I feel like the patience of the public and the governing body may start to wear thin if it has to be updated every 5 years, because we now do it like that. Couldn't be done, it turns out.
To piggyback off what Nick's saying, I mean, this was only 6 years ago. If it was passed in 2000, this ordinance, that would make a lot more sense as to why this wasn't feasible at all. So, while I understand the logistic, this is we have to pass a resolution on an ordinance, that makes perfect sense to me. I think that naturally there's going to be a lot of public, negative feedback to completely overdoing an ordinance that was passed less than a decade ago, with claims that it just wasn't possible in the first place. I mean, so I think as we build a new ordinance, I think it's really important to stress what is feasible under the new kind of climate of renewable energy, but then also the new climate of, what climate neutrality looks like right now, especially in a state like Kansas. So, I don't know if you...
I think an example of that, for example, and this is another question I had that kind of leads really nicely into it. The 3 priority KPIs, one of them is that there's a certain percentage of city-used electricity powered by on-site renewable energy. And it's not like in the original one, looking through the ordinance, it says that clean energy means energy, that is sourced from carbon-free and pollution-free energy. It doesn't say anything about on-site or RECs. It sounds like the issue early on is that certain people said RECs don't count, which frankly is kind of silly because all the electrons are kind of in the soup in the system anyway. It's kind of like biogas and fossil fuel in the gas system, they all kind of mix, honestly. Or even reclaimed water and regular water and river water. There's a lot of things mixing in utility grids. I can see how people would take a principled stand against it, but it sounds like we're letting that drive the conversation and saying, well, we want to make this even harder and make sure everything has to come from on-site energy generation, which is a nice goal to go for, but there are geographical limitations in certain things, right? There's only so much wind here, there's a ton of wind over there. There's only so much solar here, there's a lot of solar down there, right? Are we actually limiting ourselves to not RECs, or am I just reading too far into that KPI? Because if that's the case, it sounds like it's going to be very hard to reach in that case.
All great points. So a lot of different
Maybe
people.
part of the position then is we shouldn't be just establishing single goals. When I was in the military, one of the strategies we used frequently was objective and threshold requirements, where we have a minimum standard that we absolutely need to meet and a high aspirational objective, like let's get entirely onto on-site renewable energy. That is the pipe dream, but it may not be realistic, and so the objective provides you a more realistic standard that theoretically should be achievable and would still be something that the community would appreciate with whatever standard we want to set for that.
That actually has quite a bit of precedent in the environmental world. I mean, discharge permits for wastewater typically go with an MCL and an MCLG. So the maximum contaminant level, if I got that right, and then the maximum contaminant level goal, which is usually either unreachable with today's technology or so low that it's at the measurement level. Okay, in 10 years it'd be great if we could get here, but we know it's not possible. So at least try to do this so we're not actively harming people with this effluent. That sounds like a great way to go about it. And also, I hate to say hedging, but if it turns out that in 5 years, say what is this called? the renewable fuel standard, like say that gets gutted for whatever reason in 5 years, perfectly possible, right? If that goes away and biogas suddenly becomes a very hard thing to get, all right, let's move on to the next one, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's go to the contingency plan. Let's not base goals off of, you know, kind of the capricious whims of whoever's in charge of providing renewable energy. I don't know, is that the kind of thing that could be worked into the resolution, or is that a little bit too complicated for, like?
I mean, I think it's more just focus on the things that we can control, and if there are things that are outside the purview, like state and federal legislations, regulations, anything like that, we have to throw up our hands and say we can't deal with that kind of problem. We just do what we can do locally to do the best. And if our hands are tied on other things, our hands are tied, and that sucks.
And I would just comment though too, like for those who, I don't know if you guys have looked at the Douglas County plan and like what they're adapting. I think it does a pretty good job of outlining a lot of these more detailed goals that I think are, one, just more realistic and achievable and things that you can actually measure and do. So like goal 1 for energy reduction is develop and promote programs that prioritize energy conservation and cost savings, right? So those are things that a city could work towards, not necessarily very rigid. I think that's probably one of the problems with the previous ordinances. It's very rigid, very optimistic and wishful thinking, which is great, and I think it helped push things this way, but I think the Douglas County plan is a much more pragmatic way of going at this and actually trying to achieve it. So the one thing that I would comment on in kind of reviewing things is that I feel like, you know, when you're rewriting the resolution, I think it would be nice to have some statement or something similar to the other one where it's like an annual review, but actually going further and like actually saying the city will post an annual review of the different goals and how they're mapping in and working towards the Douglas County plan. Because I feel like that's the one thing that I feel like could get lost in this is like the Douglas County plan is really big, lots of stuff going on, but what is the city actually going to be doing and how are we going to be able to track that? So if it's possible, and I don't know, I'm not a legal person, so I'm not great with that, but like how you could maybe have some sort of annual report on matching the Douglas County goals, how the city is doing that as part of the resolution that would get put out, actually demonstrate how the city is doing that. Because, yeah, I worry that if you're just like, hey, we're adopting Douglas County plan, it's kind of vague, right? And people may want to see specifics. But you don't want to make it so rigid, as we saw from the previous one, that you can't adjust that. And I think some kind of wording in between that has some level of that, but not, I don't know.
Well, perhaps you could have an annual review of how far we've achieved, what we've achieved that year, how far we've gone towards the goals, and then what our priorities are for the next year, so that you could stay on goal of trying to get there, rather than just saying we're going to do this in 25 years. Of course, we can't really do that if we wait 25 years from now and suddenly need to do it, but we need to do stepwise. So some type of review and prioritization for the coming year might be useful.
I want to mention on the annual review or information of where we're at with these strategies and goals of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. We don't want those to get lost as pieced into different cities or whatnot. We want it to be all within the webpage of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. And I would want the county, if you're would like to talk a little bit of how you're going to report out to the community, you know, what areas of the plan have been worked on and some of those things we've achieved along the way, and how you may, we're going to work together to highlight, you know, City of Lawrence or Baldwin City. Would you like to maybe say a few words about that? Because it is written into the plan. I just want to make sure that we understand that that information will be available.
And specific for the city, not just for the county. Not
That's
just
our hope,
countywide.
yes. Yeah, that's what we've been talking about. So all in one place, but specific to the city too.
Hi, everyone. Kim Kreiner Ritchie, Sustainability Manager for Douglas County. We were able to launch a webpage kind of progress update on Adapt Douglas County. It was approximately 1 year since the city had adopted it, so last fall. I wish I could pull it up for you, but it's on the county webpage, and it does have status updates on all the items that we included in the implementation section, which is at the end of ADC. So every item that was already in motion or that we had leads on, we did nod to that in the plan, and then have provided status updates on our website, as well as additional things that have come into play. Now, at the time, we did only take a stab at, well, what can we say from the county point of view? What are we convening around? It doesn't mean that this only the county working on it by any means, but what are we kind of leading at the time? What we need to work on, and what we're open to ideas, is how do we incorporate what the other cities are doing? What is Lawrence doing? What is Baldwin leading in? What is Lecompton leading in? Those are all pieces that are really important to the story, and we just haven't yet launched into how to capture all of those and do those justice together. Go ahead.
And just to highlight, this is an opportunity or a way where the information is front and center year-round, that it's not just one report that was attached to a city commission meeting or something like that. It's just information where you can log on to a web page and read through it whenever you're interested in finding out the progress of this plan.
And one more thing I'll add while I'm up here is that there was some discussion of milestones, and I just want to point, I think we may have been sending people in the wrong direction earlier, but looking at page 12 is where we've outlined a reduction scenario, where in fact the organization ICLEI that Kathy was mentioning earlier also helped us with the countywide GHG that we did to inform this plan, also helped us to pinpoint some select reasonable scenarios of reduction that we might be able to reach. For example, we have here 20% of countywide potential of a rooftop solar achieved. And so we've outlined this, that if these specific things could be achieved by 2030, we'd have a reduction of 38.5%. However, we can't see that far into the future, so we don't know if these specific things will actually line up. Will we have the funding to achieve this? Will we have all the right partners in place? Do we have, is that the same priority from this community to this community for us all to work together on that right now? Or are we going to pick up with things at a different pace? So we understood that was a possibility. So we wanted to kind of get this out, get our feet on the ground, start working on stuff, and then that's part of that 5-year review, is coming back to it, looking at our more recent GHG, what have we gotten implemented, what is working, where can we now project more realistically out. If we grow this initiative, we'll have this much more reduction. We're seeing momentum here where we didn't even think that was maybe possible when we started. Or, as you guys have already brought up some good examples of, well, maybe that's not going to go as far as we thought it would. So we're able to constantly adapt our approach every few years with the help of all the groups who are working on this in the community, so that we can react in real time.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I think just to echo what several people have already said is, and this was the language I was trying to get to earlier, it's like goals versus benchmarks. I know why we want to sort of sunset the ordinance, because it had these unrealistic benchmarks, but I think the community will want to know, and this can be done as suggested through sort of continuous reporting and as data comes in, right? But like, if they're goals and we're in 2049 and we've met 3 of them out of, I don't know, here, 8, whatever, 9, like, is the plan going to be updated? Because like Kim just pointed out, right, we see these aspirations for 4 years from now, 2030, to get these greenhouse gases emissions reduced by that period. So it's like, I even see, because again, I am a SMART goals person too, as Nick talked about, and I'm just like, okay, how do we get to this? And I'm trying to find the timeframes in the plan, and I'm seeing on like page 50, like timeframes that are actively now in 2025 to 2026, right? These are our goals for that strategy. So is the plan to update the plan, or I guess what are you thinking on staff side? Because as I'm envisioning, the resolution is just to point to the plan, and the plan is what guides us.
I guess what I would add, and hopefully this helps. So I had mentioned about the countywide greenhouse gas inventory being completed every so often. So this isn't a thing where there's a baseline of 2021, and then the next time we try to figure out where we're at, it's 2050. So it's going to be regular, and by the way, the county's doing this, and then the city's also going to have specific information because we're also tracking our contribution to the emissions. We want to know how much action we need to take and what kind of action to help in the reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions. But I just want to mention that there's going to be measurements pretty regularly. So if we're not seeing greenhouse gas reduction or we're seeing emissions increase, then we all have to get back on the table and really have some conversations of what's not working out or what other areas, maybe we've had too many walls we're hitting on some of this stuff, but what could we be doing to make an impact on the reduction of the emissions? I don't think it's a thing where we just sit and wait and hope for the best in a few more years. I think it's an active conversation, and that's what at least I'm very hopeful that having a plan that is ever changing is going to be helpful in the long run, and that these are active conversations. There is, I don't know, Kim kind of mentioned working with stakeholders, but there is a team of representatives from these other cities in Douglas County that didn't formally adopt the plan, but are joining in on the conversation and seeing what they can do in their part. So they're actively working on this with the City of Lawrence and Douglas County as well. And those meetings happen quarterly. And the ongoing updates, I think, on a website where somebody can, find that. And I'm assuming also, I'll let the county respond to this, but each greenhouse gas inventory that's created, eventually when there's several, you kind of have a graph that shows where we're at or where we've been at for the last few years. And again, still doing some projection on some reduction if some of those additional actions can be taken. Any other questions or just feedback? It's been a great conversation.
In the original ordinance, and it seems like this may go forward, we're focusing on this definition of clean electricity, which doesn't include things like nuclear or biogas or things that are, significantly cleaner than traditional fossil fuels. I don't know. From somebody who works in a lot of these fields, it seems kind of puritanical because in a way they are all reducing emissions. Some just seem to be ickier than others because biogas is still a natural gas, or maybe nuclear still has a waste issue. But so do wind turbines, right? So it's just, I guess I just continue to worry that we're painting ourselves into a corner by making the goals too difficult, and that we're going to be here in 5 years again where it's like, man, it turns out nuclear actually got a lot cheaper, and actually it's a doable thing right now. Or maybe the renewable fuel standard gets upgraded by a new administration, and it turns out it's a lot easier to get biogas. For things like heavy equipment, for example,
Yep.
Sounds like it was pretty quickly noted that they can't really be electrified with the technology that we have, and it doesn't look like it'll happen anytime soon. Even the electric fire trucks that we were supposed to get ended up being hybrid fire trucks. We're not quite there yet. But there's plenty of CNG vehicles out there. That's totally doable at that scale, and you can run that on biogas. So there are options. But if we kind of adopt this more puritanical stance, it's going to be difficult to meet the broad goals by focusing on our preferred kind of energy. So just a general warning to kind of not discount stuff based on, vibes, and make sure that we're kind of being a little bit more holistic in our approach of what energy is available, both here in the community on-site generated and further afield. Kansas has huge wind potential, but maybe not in Douglas County necessarily. So it sounds like that's maybe still up in the air, which is kind of why I'm, on my soapbox here. But if that is up in the air, yeah, I would highly encourage to not let the people win who say it all good renewable energy is one that's on site, and the stuff that comes from somewhere else, that's not the real deal.
Nick, I don't think that the plan would be to sort of reuse the current ordinance.
Right.
I think we're going to rewrite a resolution, and staff, tell me if I'm wrong, right? A totally new resolution, and it's going to say the goal, the resolution is to follow Adapt Douglas County. Is that right?
I think I just don't see a lot of details in the adaptation plan that really say anything about that, and perhaps that is the answer. Perhaps it is left open enough in the goals that is good,
Yeah, absolutely. Requirements don't dictate how you actually solve the problem. If you do, then you are, solving the problem. That's not what a requirement is supposed to set out to do.
Yeah.
So there's things missing too, like white hydrogen. They're building a white hydrogen plant in Wichita now. And heat pumps are a terrific way to replace natural gas heat. So there's lots of options to get to these goals that aren't discussed at all.
So my comment to your feedback was going to be, have you been listening in on staff conversations? Because this is exactly some of the conversations that are happening. If we can't electrify our trash trucks, right? Can we do something in the next 5 to 10 years that's going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions? Maybe isn't that 100% clean renewable energy, but it's still going to make an impact. It's better than status quo. So we've been having a lot of those conversations, but still in the stage of a little bit of, well, but that's not what our overarching goal is at the time, right now at this time. That's not going along with 100% clean renewable energy. But, and this is what's some of the conversations that have opened up that bigger conversation about replacing this ordinance. So the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, again, there's a lot of actions we can make that will make a huge impact in reduction of greenhouse gas emissions that don't fall under these old definitions that are in this ordinance. So thanks for bringing it up, because those are real conversations.
One thing I wanted to point out is that even in the best case scenario, we will only be to reduce about 40% of emissions, because 60% is from buildings, and buildings is Evergy and Black Hills, and we don't have any leverage over them.
Unless we do heat pumps.
So wouldn't it be more effective, rather than going through all these different routes, to maybe reduce emissions for like 30%, to put pressure on the legislature to hey, require Evergy to go 80% renewable? Then you're going to have 50% reductions. So, just a thought out there. Because I don't see much here how the city is planning or wants to engage with Evergy, with KCC, and if so, does the city have the resources and capacity to do that? And that's an important part of the puzzle.
I appreciate that perspective. And again, I talked about working with our utilities and building strong relationships with these partners. I will mention that the City of Lawrence did step for the first time to be an intervener in the last year's previous Evergy case with the KCC. So we were at the table as an intervener. And I can't say whether or not what the future is going to look like for the city and, future Evergy plans, and whether or not we're going to intervene in every case. But we certainly have, great conversations that have followed through from that kind of negotiated agreement between Evergy and the city, and the things that we're talking with them about. But yeah, I hope that the city continues and the county continues to build on that relationship, because without the utilities, we're not going to get very far. It's the reality.
So I have not read through the adaptation plan in detail either, but I've skimmed it a decent amount. Is there any mention of I guess, the distinction between Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions? It seems like for the most part, we're focusing on Scope 1, which would be the actual stuff coming out of a pipe. Scope 2 is, I guess, a little bit fuzzier. It's the indirect energy emissions I'm getting here. Like where the electricity comes from, which I think that's probably included implicitly in the plan, right? But then Scope 3 is the value chain emissions. Like how much is the cost to transport the things that you use? I guess the question would be then, is in its current form, does the adaptation plan provide any credit for improving Scope 3 emissions? Or is it really just Scope 1 and 2 for the most part?
The county?
Scope 1 and Scope 2.
Okay.
So you're thinking things like embodied carbon, like if we were to say we were going to transition all of our fleet, doesn't matter how old certain vehicles are right now, and we're just going to go buy all new.
Yeah.
There's,
That's all. Scope
yeah, a
3.
huge impact.
Yeah.
Right,
And a huge acceleration in your capital budget.
right.
Sounds like it's probably more likely than that rather than including Scope 3 as an option to get to our goals, it would probably hurt us because it's a lot harder to get those given the current global supply chains. Is that a fair assessment? That like, we're better off just not thinking about it right now. Like, let's just work on 1 and 2.
I would say as we look at our sustainable capital projects policy and LEAD, currently we have a couple projects registered under LEAD version 4, but LEAD version 5 is going to be the only option here later this year, and that has a focus on embodied carbon. So at least when we're looking at renovating city facilities or if new facilities are needed, I mean, we are starting to look at that as we pursue LEAD on those. That will also educate staff and in turn, we will be spreading that information throughout the community as we educate about our projects to talk more about that embodied carbon, because that's kind of where the whole U.S. Green Building Council has gone. You know, it's been around for 30 years, and it took a big shift last year with version 5. So
I think with Envision, that'll probably increase that adoption even more of understanding embodied carbon because that's like a whole section of it. So,
I agree.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other?
Oh, I have a question. We've talked a lot about emissions mitigations. Can you just give us an overview of how climate adaptation in this document compares to the resolution that you're asking or the ordinance that you're asking the city to overturn? Was there an adaptation piece in there? Okay.
There's no adaptation in the ordinance 9744.
Okay.
Which, yeah, is an important piece.
Yeah, I just think that this was the first year in, I don't know, maybe 5 years that emissions globally increased, and I think we can do our best to reduce emissions here in Lawrence, but climate change is coming either way, and in my mind, the adaptation piece is probably the more important piece, because our mitigation locally is great work and super valuable goal, but I think it's just a tiny little drop in a global bucket, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's definitely emphasized in here, like living systems doesn't really have anything to do with how you are buying energy, but it talks about the ability of us to be able to use the land that we have for the things that we want to do, like being able to grow food.
Yeah, so maybe my feedback then for talking about this with the community is to make sure to kind of highlight that a bit more.
Yep.
Because I think it's, looking through these goals beyond the mitigation goals, I think they're really good goals that the community would get behind.
Yeah. Thank you.
From people who participated in the adoption of this plan, which is probably at least a couple of you, right? Is there anything?
I believe Nancy and myself.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, is there any opportunity or goal or niche here that you kind of were hoping you would see in here that maybe didn't make the final cut, that you think there's an opportunity to include in a resolution, like, hey, by the way, let's see if we can do this also? Like, for example, just something very silly. There's something about adopting the new IBC 2024, is that right? I wouldn't be surprised if you still aren't allowed to do single-stair apartments, for example, but that's a really easy way to make smaller apartment buildings that can enable 15-minute cities, walkability, blah, 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 stuff like that, right? If we don't do that locally, then we'll be kind of hamstringing ourselves for a pretty easy climate win by making more sustainable sustainable neighborhoods. Stuff like that, right? Like very technical goals that are like, oh yeah, we do have this open to us, and we could start chasing it down to, with the needle.
Hey, the plan does specifically mention 15-minute neighborhoods a few times, and it's been a while since I looked at it, but that was one of the mobility objectives, was to allow people to do what they need to do in a smaller, more consolidated area through the use of, presumably, mixed zoning could be a part of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it that aren't just the use of energy or what we purchase for the city to do. It's how you organize the city and how you convince people that they have the resources that they're looking for within close boundaries to them, as opposed to you have to drive halfway across the city to get to the nearest grocery store. That's not beneficial for anyone.
Yeah.
So for me, something that was sort of an aside to this was plastic reduction. So I think it's part of the overall broader piece, but it was not in here at all.
Yeah. Like, why is styrofoam still allowed, right? Like, can't be recycled, it's useless.
Yeah.
Why is there still styrofoam?
Yeah.
So, okay.
And all kinds of single-use plastics.
Yeah. So do you think that there is an opportunity in the cases of things that, like, oh, maybe we could have included that, but there wasn't time, or maybe the political calculus has changed in the last year, I don't know. Would this resolution allow that opportunity to almost like add amendments? Is that a possibility?
So I appreciate the question, and I think that how I would have responded to that is really honestly, this is a plan that is being worked on and will continuously be worked on. So I don't know why we would want to have additional strategies and goals that sit outside of this plan.
Okay.
I would use all my energy to get those topics up at the table for discussion on getting them onto that climate action and adaptation plan.
Okay.
So that would be my approach. Because then,
But isn't that in 5 years when you're talking about doing a change in it, or is this something that's going to happen more frequently?
so the timeframe, might be 5 years, but I believe that there can be edits. I mean, we're continuously working on it.
Yeah, I mean, we're working towards the goals that are, check on.
Yep, please.
Hi, Jamie Hoffling from Sustainability in Douglas County. We're focused on the goals that are stated here, and you'll see when you go to the website that we're making progress on them, but we have a long ways to go. So the thought of adding more, making edits to it is not on the table at this moment, but in the 5 years, there's a 5-year period where, in 5 years from the time that it was adopted in 2024, so that'd be roughly 2029, we would take it up for review. And we have not really hashed out how that will take place yet. Would love to hear recommendations on how we might go about that. But it won't be a rewrite of the plan, it will be a review with opportunity for edits.
And I would also mention, so the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan isn't a plan where a staff person says, oh, this needs to be a strategy and a goal in it, let's get a way to get it in there, or this advisory board. No, this was based on a lot of community feedback. And I know the plan and Douglas County is going to continue to involve the whole community in it. So we may have ideas we want to bring to the table that we think are included in the plan, like maybe these advisory boards and city staff. But that's also going to go through a community process, community engagement process. I don't see our climate action and adaptation plan being edited every 5 years and not including a portion of feedback from the public, if that's fair, Sure. So I just want to make sure that, and all of that takes time.
Yeah.
It's not a quick, okay, in a couple months we can have this as a package deal to get edited into the plan.
And if I could just add that the goals are written to be very broad and in a way that you as a city can make sense of it and come up with the action strategies and ways to get there. So it is written broadly so that you can use your imagination, use your creativity, use your partnerships, your expertise, and your participation on other boards to help move things forward. So.
I was going to ask all staff here, like, beyond a resolution or dropping an ordinance, like, how can these two corporate bodies support the work of this adaptation plan and the work that staff are doing? I know you spoke a little bit just now, but, are there other things that you can think of?
Yeah, thank you for bringing up that question because, yeah, and kind of if we move past this, repealing an ordinance and writing a resolution in place, how can these two advisory boards? So again, your purpose is to provide that policy advice to the governing body. And I'll give a good example, something that happened prior to the adoption of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan was the Sustainable Capital Projects Policy that is specific to the City of Lawrence. But that is a policy item that we knew was going to help move the needle for climate action and adaptation work. So we went directly to our Sustainability Advisory Board, gave presentations there, I think a couple presentations, answered all the questions and really got their support. That advisory board provided comment and also expertise to the City Commission and also a letter of support for moving this forward. That it happened to be the Sustainability Advisory Board had a lot of conversations in the past about LEED certification. So it's really important for us because some of these broad strategies and goals that Jamie mentioned, they have policy work that needs to be completed to move things forward. And that's when we're going to need both of these boards to, again, be there as a board that lends out your expertise and gets us through the detail of what we're working on, but then also provides that support so that the City Commission feels like, comfortable in moving forward with some of the stuff. So just a really good example was the Sustainable Capital Projects Policy. That was a perfect pairing of policy work that we worked together with an advisory board on. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's a question for me as much, it's a question for all of you too, right? Like, what can we do to support your work? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just say one thing. I think it's important to adopt the resolution before you repeal the ordinance, so that we're not left with, there's nothing here, and you don't get pushback from the community that we're just reneged on all of our goals here.
Okay.
I mean, I'd say you should do it simultaneously.
Yeah. I was going to ask both Nancy and Hillary, because I'm looking at the time. I don't know if you wanted to, if there's anybody that would like to provide public comment on this item, just open it up for that.
Yes, let's do that. Is there public comment in the room? I can't see, obviously.
Not in the room.
Nobody.
Only two people
Online.
that do not appear to want to provide public comment at this time.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, just the formality of opening it up for public comment.
Okay. All right, should we adjourn now? There's no further comment?
See you guys.
All right.
Good?
Good.
All right.
In favor?
Thanks.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Good.